streaming. Start streaming. So we should be streaming. Let us double check on that. Let's go to, how about share the stream? Let's go look at the link. Let's super go. Alright, so we are streaming correctly. Let's put that over here and get into our code. So last we were working on this, we had the, let's get the actual app up. There we are. Last we were working on this, we had, let's do a hard refresh here. So we have some basic linear gradients. We have this options panel that opens up from the side. And I believe the last thing we were doing was looking at this linear and radial gradient type. So let's dig a little more into that. So where did we leave off here? So let's do here's some of the to-dos in here. Right, we were working on a bunch of those things. And for a radial, right, okay, we have a fly out, and then we have this. So what's going on in this gradient utils? This is a make gradient string. So if the gradient type is linear, it does those things. Ah, I see, okay. Gradient type, else if gradient type is radial, so if it's a radial gradient, this is, let's go look at here we go, the radial gradient. So, right, so a radial gradient, so it will have an ending shape or a size, then the keyword at, then a optionally position, and then it will have a color stop list. So ending shape is either circle or ellipse. If it's a circle, size must be a length, not a percent. Or if it's an ellipse, size must be 2% and cannot be negative. Let's go look at does this MDN page link to the spec? Okay, go back to the radial portion of it. Let's look at, how about MDN gradient spec. W3C gradient spec. CSS image module level 3. Gradients. Radial gradients. The radial gradient notation. In a radial gradient, rather than colors smoothly fading from one side of the gradient box to the other, as with linear gradients, they instead emerge from a single point and smoothly spread outward in a circular or elliptical shape. A radial gradient is specified by indicating the center of the gradient, where the 0% ellipse will be, and the size and shape of the ending shape, the 100% ellipse. Color stops are given as a list, just as for linear gradient. Starting from the gradient center and progressing towards and potentially beyond the ending shape, uniformly scaled concentric ellipses are drawn and colored according to the specified color stops. The radial gradient syntax is radial gradient ending shape or size at position color stop list. Okay, I think we actually together so we can have less. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Ending. So I think this was a little incorrect. A little bit incorrect. Ending shape, or I mean, I could literally copy it here. I think mine was a bit. I think I had a typo there. So ending shape or size, this is optional. At position, color stop list color stop, ending shape or size at position, color stop list. Ending shape is either circle or ellipse. Ending shape can be either circle or ellipse. Determines whether the gradient's ending shape is a circle or an ellipse, respectively. If ending shape is omitted, the ending shape defaults to a circle if the size is a single length, and to an ellipse otherwise. Ending shape. So let's, for the simple version of this, let's make it an ellipse. So gradient string equals radial gradient. You are passing in, you pass in degrees, and you pass in gradient type. Color string is something that we make. So radial gradient, it's going to say circle, no, pardon, we're going to do ellipse, E-L-L-I-P-S-E, okay, that's ending shape, or that's ending shape. Determines the size of the gradient's ending shape. Size. Expanded with the above definitions, the grammar becomes circle or length, ellipse or length percentage, two of them, circle or ellipse, extent keyword, so size determines the ending shape, or that's an or, ending shape or size determines the size of the gradient's ending shape. If omitted, it defaults to farthest corner. It can be given explicitly or by keyword. For the purpose of the keyword definitions, consider the gradient box edges as extending infinitely both directions rather than being finite line segments. If the ending shape is an ellipse, its axes are aligned with the horizontal and vertical axes. Both circle and ellipse gradients accept the following keywords as their size. Closest side, farthest side, closest corner, farthest corner. If ending shape is specified as circle or is omitted, the size may be given explicitly as a length for a circle. If ending shape is specified as ellipse or omitted, size may instead be given explicitly as a length percentage. Gives the size of the ellipse explicitly. The first value represents the horizontal radius, the second the vertical radius. Percentages values are relative to the corresponding dimension of the gradient box. Negative values are invalid. Length percentage. Equivalent to length percentage, where the percentage will resolve to a length. Length percentage, where the percentage will resolve to a length. Is there an example of this? Radial gradient. Radial gradient, red, blue. radial gradient okay, positioning the center of the gradient. Length or percentage for ellipse. For ellipses only, you can size the ellipse using a length or percentage. You can specify the size of radial gradients. Possible values include closest corner, closest side, farthest corner, and farthest side, with farthest corner being the default. Circles can also be sized with a length, and ellipses a length or percentage. Ending shape. Ending shape determines whether the gradient's ending shape is a circle or an ellipse. Size. Closest side, farthest side. Ending shape, circle. Ending shape, circle. Farthest corner. Farthest corner. Ending shape, circle. Size, ending shape, circle. Size, farthest corner. Farthest corner. Farthest corner. At position. Now what is the deal with the position? Determines the center of the gradient. The position value type, which is also used for background position, and is resolved using the center point as the object area and the gradient box as the positioning area. If this argument is omitted, it defaults to center. Position. Left, center, right, top, center, bottom. Center is what we're going to say. Center. Radial gradient. Radial gradient doesn't accept degrees, it does accept a color string. So radial gradient would accept this, and then a color string. Alright, let's see what that does for me. Gradient type radial. Yes, I'm not surprised that it appeared that it did not do anything. Let's go look at the where does it where does this put my... Alright, that's going to be a lot of back and forth. Let's put, where does the gradient string, so that's make gradient string, where does make, okay, gradient string, and where are you used? You are, you are the style, so it's an inline style, is how I'm doing it. There it is, there's the baiting grid. Background linear gradient, if we change that to, okay, well that's interesting. So why does the gradient style, this would be flyout, this would be in the flyout, let's go here. Radial, okay. Option value radial, okay. Label for gradient type on change, set gradient options, whatever the gradient options are currently, and gradient type of event.target.value. Let's go look. Flyout gradient options. There it is. Gradient type radial. Okay. So now y in gradient options. Gradient options, you should be gradient type equals, you should be, it should be going in here, but apparently it is not. Let's put a debugger here. Refresh, okay. Let us, okay, let's go here. That's a lot of errors. Okay. It doesn't have there. Let's do that one. Gradient type radial. Okay. Gradient type is radial. Okay. Gradient type is radial. Right. Gradient string should be radial gradient, circle farthest corner, center. Okay. When we gradient string. Right, so when we go to the end, and then here, interesting. 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 Now hold on, why is why is that going back into the debugger? That does not make sense to me. When I click on components and flyout, loading. Interesting. That is a little interesting to me. Let's remove this debugger and refresh it. Could restart it, I suppose. Pardon. The app will restart. Right. So when we change the gradient type to radial, the flyout gradient options, gradient type radial, but the style, interestingly enough, still says linear. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So this has updated. Gradient options has updated, but the style still has gradient string of, how interesting that is. Why are you, yeah, why are you not the correct one? Gradient string linear gradient, so when we change it to radial, gradient string radial gradient, that's what I would have expected. Interesting, but the element, the style still has background gradient string. Okay. Why is that? Gradient string is the state updates. The state updates. The function reruns. Gradient string is, yeah, gradient string is a new value. Why is the, that does not make sense to me yet. Why would gradient string has changed? Very interesting. Last name, gradient style, background. Gradient string. Yeah, why? So this is, what is this? This is React inline styles using outdated local variables. That's what's happening now. React inline styles using outdated local variables. Let's look at a render. Let's look at a render. There's a render with a linear gradient. We change it to radial. There's a render with a new gradient string that has a radial gradient. Okay. Now why, for the life of me, does the unless there's something about like it doesn't use it if it's incorrect. That's the only thing I can imagine here. Let me see if this is actually the correct version for that. You can actually look at, you could do it like this here. Yeah, we can do it here as well. Ah, I wonder if that's why it's incorrect. All right, radial gradient, circle farthest corner, center, and then color stops. All right, so what am I doing incorrectly about that?